Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. My co-host Jeremy Scipio is hitting the stage tonight, but we have with us the homeboy, Opio from Souls of Mischief,
Yo, what up?
hieroglyphics, the whole little ins and outs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
here, man,
popping at one time. So now Opio, I little background. I always say that I inherited different things with the far side. And one of the cool things I inherited was a cool little kinship with Opio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? And actually ended up becoming in the top echelon of my rappers, my MCs, personal favorites. I've like I said, I've bumped Vulture's Wisdom, the album, and a couple others while getting into mischief, on a Friday night. On a Friday night, you know what I'm saying? Back in the day, doing that thing. But no, man, I'm glad you took the time. We about to chop it up. It was cool seeing you at the forum.
It was at the forum.
Okay, yeah, at the forum. I was former YouTube. Yes, cool running to you at the forum. That was a cool little get down. So we got you on the space.
That was incredible. I was bugging out. I was so many people that I hadn't seen in forever. And it's like after the pandemic happened, there's so many things that I just haven't done in years, that I forget about. Like I haven't been to any type of big stadium show like that. Couldn't even remember the last time. You know what I mean? So it was dope to get back into the mix with something like that was so historic. You know what I mean? Good people around. Daylight, I hadn't seen them brothers in a long time. So it was like a family reunion up in that joint.
Yeah, nah, it definitely was. It's Corey's birthday, Smiles' birthday.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my homeboy Rob Morgan, met him years ago. We was cool, and so he was like, man, I got a +1, and I was like, oh man. I was like, man, this, my situation is just tight, man. And he's like, nah, man, it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. So Pops lives, not Pops lives, but Pops has an office. It's like 5 minutes from the forum. So I was like, well, park at my dad's office, because 2 cars already trying to park VIP and all that kind of stuff. That's just,
yeah.
If you ain't together, man, the chances of just, everything going wrong, they just increased by so much. So I was like, nah, park at Pop's office. So while he was getting out of his car and getting into mine, he had his buddy, and I'm looking at homeboy, and I didn't get the acting part. Like when I looked at him, I was just kind of like, And then I had lost the remote control to the gate. So I was going through my stuff in the car, and I was looking for the remote, and I was like, he Magic Johnson. He was like, yeah, man, I'm Isaiah. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh man, because I watched it because Shadow Flack is he plays his pops. You know what I'm saying? So kicking it with them was cool. Kicking it with them was cool. It was like
that was kind of like, that was so wild. When you're at the forum, and then you got the actor that's playing Magic Johnson in that, what's it called? Game Time? What's the name of that?
It's not
I can't remember what it's called.
Maybe not Showtime, but anybody, it's the Lakers.
Yeah, exactly. That was like surreal. I was like, ain't that dude?
The funny part about it is that he was like, I've never been to the forum. He's like, they shot the parts that's the forum, they shot it in Orange County. And I was like, oh man. Oh shoot, man! After it was over, man, we went and kicked it on Western, and Manchester had tacos. I was like, oh man, I got him with me, man. I gotta really take him into some shit. You know what I'm saying? Let him inhale the city.
I hadn't been over there. I went to a show. It was interesting because I saw Beck perform there. It was like Beck and Green Day, and I think Weezer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like some type of either like Christmas or Halloween, some type of thing. But this is before the SoFi Ram Stadium was built, you
Mhm.
know? So I I've flown over the stadium and saw it, but I don't think I even realized that the forum was just like right there next to it. I had no concept that they were that like right across the street from each other. So that was kind of like
Mhm.
interesting to see. I had never seen the stadium up close, so I had been to the forum, but I have yet to make it over to SoFi. But it looked cool though. I was right there. You know what I'm saying?
I went to SoFi when they had you know, when they were kind of, because Pops is, you know, has a business in Inglewood, they kind of invited the business owners and stuff to kind of go through, take a tour and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went off in there, man, and I just like, man, I mean, it's we ain't never had nothing like that in LA. I mean, the Coliseum is like, you know, the Coliseum is like prehistoric gladiator days,
Yeah, for real.
literally, figuratively, definitively, every way. And
I
SoFi
think
is,
it's like 80,000 people could get in there though, so it can be pretty massive. I mean, at the old Coliseum, the one that's by USC, right?
yeah, but that's the hood. Like it, you know, it's a different level of security around
Oh,
SoFi than it is the Coliseum. You know what I'm
oh, come
saying?
on, man. One thou wow.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. So tell me this, man. When did you hear hip hop for the first time? And what was the song?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, I want to say it was like Rapper's Delight. You know what I mean? But it wasn't really so much about the pure song or whatever that I heard. It was like older kids in my neighborhood, like the young black youth, basically teenage black youth in Oakland, were kind of just consumed with hip hop culture. So it was like people was breakdancing, they was doing graffiti, you know what I mean? People was rapping. It was like a whole, it was like what the older kids were like into. It was a whole entire culture. So it wasn't just like, oh, I've somehow experienced hip hop through this first song. You know what I mean? I feel like
A movement.
it was like, yeah, it was something that was happening within just like young black kids basically that were like right where I lived in my neighborhood. And I would just see this for friends of mine that had older brothers and stuff. You know, I mean, Oakland is a multicultural city. So one of my best friends when I was a kid, he was Mexican. His brother went to Oakland Tech and he was like, you know, he was super into rap too. He knew all the words to different songs and whatever. But if I had to pin it down, I would probably think it was like Rapper's Delight would have been like the first song that I at least kind of heard and knew what it was type of scenario, you know. But I was a shorty, you know what I mean? I was like probably first grade or something like that, you know.
Yeah, well, first I want to give a shout out to the little chat, man. We got a couple people poking their heads in. We got a Queen Onyx World, we got a tribute phone, and live at the barbecue. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate
Hey,
y'all tapping in on us one time. But
yes, sir.
yeah, you know, hip hop was see for me, it was more like 12, 13, 14. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like kind of that in like the influence of MTV. At what age did you realize hip hop was your thing?
I grew up in a kind of a musical house. My dad was a musician and he had friends that came over and played music and like we could just listen to a lot of music was always playing in my house. We were listening to music or I was at some type of jazz concert or something with my dad and he taught music as well. So I mean, I was really into like reggae. Like I was in love with Peter Tosh and Bob Marley, and you know, I actually went to a Peter Tosh concert when I was a kid, and then I started kind of veering into like Yellow Man, you know what I mean? and the kind of like the braggadocious nature of his, he wasn't all, I mean, I always loved like the One Love and the Roots and all that too, but it was something about that energy, you know what I mean? Where he was like, he was more of like, I'm that dude, and you know what I'm saying? He just had this confidence. And I almost feel like that was played a big part in like what I leaned into with the music. But it was more about what the older kids in my neighborhood was into. You know what I mean? So they were into this, they were into the entirety of hip hop. So they were older and they had a better understanding of all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But they were the ones that really kind of like just showed me the kind of lit a path to hip hop. You know what I mean? Because I've always been into all different types of music. You know what I mean? I had like a super wide range of taste. I mean, I listen to classical music and punk rock music and everything in between. And I appreciate it all for what it is. But it was something about seeing like these young men and this, they was just passionate about it. And they was just dope. The outfits were fresh. People was wearing, different sweatsuits and the way they had their shoes tied. And it was just a whole new thing that was going on. You know what I mean? Like it was clearly something new was taking hold, at least in Oakland, with young men. Yeah.
Opposite of perms and and then hippies. It was opposite of the hippie movement, opposite of perms. I tell everybody, I hadn't been, so my first time coming to Oakland, it had to be like, man, had to be like 94, man. Probably like 94 after, the guys had developed a relationship with you guys. And it blew my mind how I always told a story about Berkeley, my experience there. You had hippies and gangsters and then everything in between, you know what I'm saying? And it was a trip to me because you'd have people that like not necessarily on some gang banging type stuff, but dudes who was about that life, but they be vegan. You know what I'm saying? You have like all kinds of these crazy mixes up in the Bay.
Yeah, totally.
And it blew my mind. Matter of fact, I'm gonna jump up ahead and then I'm gonna spin it back. But my first time to High Road Day, one of the things that really kind of touched me, one, I was at the merch booth, and then OG Mike came up to the booth next to me and he started popping, but I didn't even know who he was though. I just thought it was like an old white cat, and he's just in the hip hop or just around. But he started popping, and I could see like he wasn't really busting hella moves, but I could see he knew how to dance. You know what I'm saying? I was like, and I had taped him with my phone or whatever. And then years later, I found out like, oh, this is OG Mike. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's, he's a fixture. And then the second was the stage that you guys performed on, like the main stage area was super multicultural. You had Asian, you had Black, you had white, you had Hispanic. And when they would turn on like a Bay Area song, everybody would go crazy. People looking like hippies, people looking like hippies, people looking like squares. You know what I'm saying? Just whoever, everybody just went off. And I was like, man, we don't have that in LA. You know what I'm saying? It's not saying that we don't have a movement or the cultures don't get along or just whatever, but the way, if an LA anthem comes on, everybody, like every culture is not gonna react in unison in a like totally jovial way. You know what I'm saying? I was like, damn, this is the Bay. That's why, you know what I'm saying? That's why.
I mean, you know how it is when you like the underdog, we like, Los Angeles is always the city that you know, people when they are in California, that's what they picture, or they think about California or dream about California. They're like, you know, Hollywood signs and the beaches are all sunny, and you know what I'm saying? It's like people have a vision, I think, in their head of California that almost doesn't include the Bay Area. I don't think it's done in like oh, we don't care about the Bay or whatever, but it's like, you know, when you're just like the little cousin or whatever that gets left out of all the fun, you you know, you kind of grab onto things I think in a different way. There's like a pride I think that people have in the Bay Area that's, you know, it's like we're the underdog. So we root for each other type of thing. So if somebody is doing good and from the Bay Area, you know what I mean? It's like, or if we got something that's going on that's moving and people are into, you know what I mean? The Bay Area definitely shows love and supports its own children. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, and you'll just see like I mean, I remember like when Mac Dre was really popping, you know, he was getting just as much burn in Oakland as he was in like Santa Rosa. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Which is like, you know, not necessarily part of the whole Bay Area scene or whatever, but it's like it's Northern California. It's just there's a universal spirit, I think, in that part of California. And there's also like this, I always say this, but there's like a diversity of thought that exists in the Bay Area that's kind of unlike places that I've visited. I mean, I've lived in the Bay but most of my whole life. I live in LA now, but you know, the time that I spent there, it was I always I learned as I traveled and went to different places how fortunate I was to have grown up in a place that did have all these different cultures and different ideologies, religion, whatever. And somehow people are still able to come and have some type of common ground. So, you know, I've always loved the Bay for that, you know, because I have friends from all walks of life as a child, you know, went to all different type of people's houses, had all different types, tried all types of food, you know, heard different languages, listened to different music, experienced different art. And, you know, it's kind of like a blessing to be from there. But if you really look at at least in the time period where I'm talking about, would have been like in the mid '80s. It was like Oakland was one of a place that a lot of people would refer to as like a chocolate city. So you had Detroit, you had Washington D.C., you know, other places, but Oakland was definitely one of those places. So it was like Black American culture was the dominant force, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? But it was always like an open-minded kind of people. Even it was like it was Black culture, but nobody was played gatekeeping with it or tried to exclude people. Everybody was welcome, but it wasn't like, you know, the way, the style of dress and the way that people acted, and you know what I'm saying, and how people talked and got into these different musics, E40, Too Short, Mac Dre, Souls of Mischief, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? A lot of that is kind of centered around Black culture, obviously. You know what I'm saying? But but that culture embraced everybody from all walks of life. I think you might be muted. I can't hear you.
I'm funny. Yeah, man. I got 13 dogs that live next to me, man. I got dogs, man, but they got more than me, man. When they start cutting up, man, I'm just like, oh, here we go. But I was saying, nah, I want to give a shout out to the little space of in the chat. We got Daxomnia, we got Thizzle Lamick, we got Jamal Rogers, you know what I'm saying, tapping in. But
Hey, yo.
yeah, man, we got a couple people that's poking their head in, you know what I'm saying? But Nah, man. I'll say the Bay is definitely a it's something to be experienced. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
definitely
hell
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it definitely is. So what was your first MC name?
I mean, I kicked around so many different rap names when I was a kid, but I think my first like real rap name where I was like, oh, I might actually be able to roll with this. I called myself the original lyricist because that's my initials, Opio Lindsay OL. So I'm like, all right, I'm OL, the original lyricist. It was a whole play on the name. I'm like, oh yeah, this works. It got O's and I's and L's and everything floating around in there. So, but it, that's like one of those for sure one of those like 80s rap names, the original lyricist.
Hey man, it wasn't new, but that's just where we was at. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
nah, totally.
That's just where it was at. So what was the name of your first rap group?
I never was really into like a rap group. So I didn't I was in love with the whole entire culture of hip hop. So, you know, I had really close friends that were talented at graffiti, you know what I mean? And I would, try my hand at graffiti or just decipher some of the pieces that I would see and spent time with them, going to different places and just looking at the art and just tripping off of it and the design and who wrote it, and, you know what I'm saying? And I had other friends that were like, athletic and just amazing break dancers and able to spin on their head and jump around. And so, I tried my hand at break dancing and, I had two turntables. I was DJing at my house but I was also rapping. And so rap kind of was the area that I like excelled in, but it wasn't like I was just like, oh, I'm just a rapper. Like I was just a kid that was into hip hop, into the culture of hip hop. So like all of the elements kind of combined is I wanted to touch it all and be kind of a part of it all. And then I went to junior high. When I went from elementary school to junior high school, that's when I met Casual from Hieroglyphics. And he was like the best rapper at our school, but he was like 12 years old. You know what I mean? He just like took out all the other older kids, and all of a sudden he's like the best rapper. And I was kind of blown away that I had met somebody that even cared about rap, because all my close friends at the time, prior to meeting anybody in Hyro, and Casual was the dude that I met. Prior to meeting any of those guys, all my friends were like, why do you care about what so and so said so much? Like, why is that even a big deal to you? They thought it was weird, you know? So it was almost like I had my friends and we were all into rap and stuff, but I was way more into it than anybody else. And they would kind of, like make fun of me or be like, what the hell? I just do? He cares what Rakim said? Like, what a weirdo. And I'm like, yo, he just said this. Oh my God. So Cash kind of like encouraged me to take rap a little bit more serious, And but we were never like in a group or nothing. He did his thing, I did my thing. We like saved up our little lunch money or whatever and rented a studio, San Francisco somewhere, went and, rented turntables, Technique 1200s, rented, had to buy the 2-inch reels. I mean, it was kind of expensive. And I think we were like in the 7th or 8th grade, and we had our, rented a studio. It was me, him, and DJ Teray. And then another friend of ours, this dude, Jeff Brown, but he didn't really like pursue rap in the same way that we did. But that was like my homie from from kindergarten. You know what I mean? And he was getting more into it too. So like after I had my experience in like the big studio and we were listening back to this song, I'm like, this is where it's at. You know what I mean? Like we kind of stumbled on something with this, like, everybody was taking it pretty serious. We were young, but we were so inspired to, try to do our own thing and try our hand in hip hop. So it wasn't necessarily that I was in a group, but I was like, Cash was like my ace at school. And he just had this incredible mind for lyrics. And, he was wise beyond his years. And he was observant in the same way that I was about, oh, this rapper said that. And we would have these really amazing conversations because I hadn't had an opportunity to talk to anybody about that and go back and forth about why this rapper I feel is better or this guy is better and that type of thing. So like in that, between the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and just kind of coming up underneath Casual's wing, that's really what got me way more serious about rap in particular. Because before that, I was just like, I do everything. You know what I mean? I'm trying to write graffiti. I'm trying to break dance. I'm DJing and I'm rapping. But then I started to get a little bit more focused on the rhymes, But it was all mostly because, Cash, if anybody knows Casual from Hyro, dude is like, he's like my favorite rapper, but he is just he's an incredible writer, incredible lyricist, and just has this incredible mind, you know what I'm saying? And so as a young man to be around that, and he was super motivated, you know what I mean? Like, so he played such a huge role in kind of getting me to where I needed to be as an MC, to take things a little bit more serious, you know what I mean? And try to develop your own style. So
yeah, he's definitely in my top 10, man. Like, and the thing about it, I haven't spent more than like a couple hours around Casual, but I've seen him a lot. I know him, you know what I'm saying? I can say I know him, but I haven't spent more than a couple of hours. But like, I'll say, as far as underground MCs, and we'll just say the word underground or whatever, he gets his props, but he's like, not to compare him to the GZA, but he's like a superior level MC. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, totally. Like very, for sure, very sharp thinker. And I'll tell you another one, man, like a really smart dude. Like all you guys are kind of, have your way with. That's one of the unique things about, some of the Hyro members and Social Mischief members. But I remember when, like, way before crypto, Casual was giving Facebook stock tips, and I was watching it, and he was posting like pictures of stuff, and I'm talking about like 10 years or more ago, and I was tripping, and I was like, damn, he like okay, he raps, he's an entrepreneur, da da da. And I'm like, dude, he really. And then I knew that he had done, an archer, you know what I'm saying? Like, bow and arrow archer, reading hieroglyphics, like literally reading hieroglyphics and debating and having conversations on a scholar type level. And I just like, man, the dude just like blew me away, man. I was like, wow, you know what I'm saying? But nah, that's dope. So in junior high school, what was your soundtrack like?
It was like, I mean, Too Short was such a huge part of that whole like soundscape. You know what I mean? Too Short was, it wasn't necessarily that he was like the most, this incredible wordsmith. It wasn't necessarily about that, but he was just that he was a great communicator. And he painted this picture and this sound palette that really represented Oakland in the way that it was like it just mirrored exactly what was going on, what you would see in your daily life. You know what I'm saying? The stuff that he was talking about, the way he said it, his vocal tone, everything, the beats, kind of the slow bass, everything. You know what I mean? So his music is almost like the overarching sound to everything. You know what I mean? Like he was such a huge influence. He was just like a giant. You know what I mean? He was a legend. I hadn't even heard his music. I don't think I heard one song, and everybody was like, "Oh, Too Short, Too Short, Too Short," and Freddie B. They were like these notorious underground rappers. It was hard to get the tapes. You know what I mean? So like, if I had friends, older brothers that had cars and whatever, so then we would get the tapes and be able to like listen to these songs. So like, Too Short was he wasn't he had even he was out even before we was in junior high, but it was like he was always kind of like that's like the standard. You know what I mean? Like we rock with Too Short off top. Almost he can almost like do nothing wrong. You know what I mean? And then there was a lot of like Def Jam stuff, or whatever later became Def Jam was like, Run DMC, LL, that was big. EPMD, they definitely were big. I mean, I distinctly remember hearing Ice-T 6 a.m. and just being just like kind of floored by how authentic it was, because it was like the crack epidemic had kind of hit Oakland in a way that probably a lot of cities had experienced as well, but we're kind of like a small place, and it was like, I don't know, it just went all of a sudden. It was just like every teenager had a pager, had money, cars, you know what I'm saying? It was just like, the that culture was like on display in real life. You know what I mean? It was like real things happening. So when I heard 6 a.m, I was like, damn, like this is crazy. You know what I mean? That he actually is able to kind of put together what is happening in the world around me and put it into a song form. That song was just crazy to me. The beat was crazy, the rap was crazy. Like I still love that song to this day.
I'll say it's not the message, but it's in the same record crate. You know what I'm saying? It's in the same DJ crate as the message. It's just not as popular in whatever, but that definitely is a foundation brick to some.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like, songs like The Message in particular is such an impactful song in many ways, from the track to the verses, everything. You know what I mean? And, New York being kind of like the birthplace of hip hop, it's only right that songs like that get their, sit kind of in the Hall of Fame in the way that they should be. But I'm sure it's like this for people that grew up in other regions, you know what I mean? Because I can guarantee this is probably a similar thing for people that grew up in Houston or wherever. They have certain songs that were more impactful to their life just because it was more closer to what was actually happening in their immediate surroundings. You know what I'm saying? So that was like why Too Short is such a huge figure in Oakland, because it was like he just represented him. What we was talking about, it was just like that was the mentality of a lot of people that I knew, people that I was just around and seeing and talking to. Mostly like older people's older brothers or somebody's older cousin or whatever. You know what I mean? It wasn't really, we was a little bit too young to fully grasp every single concept. We was trying, but when you're just like a young man, you don't have the experience, you can't really relate to it. But I was still able to kind of see like, yo, this is really talking more about what's going on, in Oakland. So, it was just like, I had a wide range of different musics, and I was also listening to other music. So I wasn't just only listening to like hip hop. I was one of my friends when I was a kid. His brother was like in a punk rock band, and they used to. There was like a couple clubs in Berkeley that were like famous for having punk rock music and stuff. And I didn't really know a lot of the band's names, and I couldn't really understand what the heck they were saying really. But I always thought it was the energy was just dope. So I used to be hella into that music. He would be giving me stuff and let me hear stuff and put me up on different things or whatever. So it was like I was listening to all type of music, but definitely hip hop at that time was like, you know what I mean? That was the main attraction.
You know, I had two conversations with some people. One, Chris Dowd from Fishbone, the keyboard player, and the other one with Satellite Jones, ODB's brother. And they're older than me, like by at least 5 years. And one of the things that they kind of broke down to me is like young Black culture is punk rock. Like, and I like, it took me a minute to kind of, Chris brought it up to me first. We were talking about somebody, and he's like, "Oh man, that was punk rock." And I was like, "Well, it wasn't necessarily the music." And he was like, "No," he's like, "Punk music is only a part of punk rock." He's like, you know, social expression, you know, freedom, you know, standing for something, not, you know, and just all these other things that went along with punk rock other than music. And I was like, they did a trick and made us not think, you know what I'm saying? Like they made us not think we're punk rock, but punk rock is kind of like rebellion, social awareness, and, you know, all those things, which, you know, hip hop, of course, has a lot of those things in them. So your senior year of high school, what did you think your path was going to be when you graduated?
I mean, our senior year was interesting because, you know, Dell had already fully went into the world, and, you know, he got signed, everything. So when I was a sophomore in high school, he was a senior. And all rap was like a very close-knit community. Anybody that was into rap, it was just a handful of us. So we just automatically came together just because of our shared passion. You know what I'm saying? Even if there was differences between different people culturally, whatever. It was like if you was really, really in love with hip hop and this way that we had shared this Kim thing, it was like we all became like best friends. And that next year, which would have been my junior year, he was signed, you know, he was on tour, he had videos, he was fully living the real rap life. Like we saw somebody come from just one of the homies that we went to high school with to fully being an internationally known rap star, you know what I mean? So based off of that, we had high hopes and dreams, and we were like, we gotta do it, man. Like he kicked in the door kind of. So, you know, it's like, and he gave us an opportunity to be featured on the B side of Mr. Dabalina.
Okay.
This little song called Burnt, which had like, it was me, Tajay, A Plus, Casual, and Dell, I think. And on like a B side of one of his records. And that really put us out there, because then it was like, then record people heard that song and they were like, oh, this is kind of dope. Like, who are these people that are on this song? And kind of like it sparked a little interest in Souls of Mischief and Casual. So like that senior year, we were pretty focused on trying to like get signed, you know. I mean, we had contact with different record labels, and you know, we had flown to New York and met with labels, and, you know, I mean, we did several things that were, you know, we could only dream of years prior. So by the time it came to like senior year, it was almost, I wouldn't say it was like set in stone, but it was like, it was so in the direction that we have a real shot at putting out a record. Now, whether or not people were going to like it and think it was good and whatever and all that is a whole other story. But in terms of could we actually really sign a record deal that would be significant enough for us to say, okay, we're not going to go immediately into college right after high school, because every one of our families was like, that's how they raised us, to graduate high school and then continue on to a 4-year university and then perhaps graduate school or get a job or something of that nature. You know what I mean? It wasn't, nobody was like, oh yeah, you guys are going to like sign a record deal and be rappers. You know what I mean? Like that was not how we were, that was not what our parents were expecting to happen. But I do think that they saw, the seriousness of what was going on. And, they were able to see, what the money was looking like and everything. So they were like, well, it seems like this is something that is like serious enough for us to kind of like give you our blessing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Universally. Like it wasn't just like one person's parents were mad, because all of our families kind of knew each other and talked about it. You know what I mean? They felt that, clearly this is something we was really passionate about. And we had major labels kind of going back and forth on, signing us. So it kind of made sense that we would go into that direction. But it was unlikely, just whatever, 2 short years before that. We wanted to get a record deal. We were in the studio, we were doing songs and whatever, but it was no record labels coming to call or nothing. Once Dale kicked in the door, it was like, it was on.
Nah, dope. I'm a spin forward and then spin it back real quick. But cats that you guys keep around you for the most part, some of them are like really talented. And I would say the person that I know least out of the whole Hyro situation would probably be Teray. You know what I'm saying? Because like when we did the CaliCom tour, we had Lex out, and then I've seen Lex and Teray. That's all I can kind of remember as far as the DJs have been. And it was interesting to me because you guys had did a show at the El Rey, and I called you guys up, and you're like, "Oh man, come on down, let's hang out real quick." Woo, woo, woo. So I go to the El Rey, and I don't know if I got there early or if you guys were coming like right before you went on, but I remember seeing Teray. He parked the Sprinter van, and he had like put it in reverse and did some stuff. And I just remember saying to myself, damn, this nigga's the DJ and he's whipping the whip. I mean, a big car. And that's kind of like my, that's my nemesis, man. I hate driving by mountains, and I hate like big stuff. I mean, I'll do it for some bread, but like, I hate driving big, commercial grade, vehicles.
Yeah. Come on, man.
And I was like, damn, Teray is, they keep,
on the wheels of steel and on the driver's wheel.
Yeah.
Steering wheel and the wheels of steel.
Yeah, I was like, dang. So one as a friend and then as a fan, one of my top 5 songs, Souls of Mischief, Hyro, independent artists, out of Souls and Hyro related, was the cut you guys did with George Clinton. How did that come about?
Well, so we have worked really closely with one engineer through all of those first classic albums. Dell, Casual, Extra Prolific, Souls of Mischief, all that, and on into the both Hyro albums. So we always had the same engineer, which was a guy by the name of Matt Kelly. And he worked at Hyde Street Studios in San Francisco. And I still talk to Matt, like, you know what I'm saying? That's like my bro. But Matt Kelly worked with everybody. He was working with Tupac, he was working with Shot G, Digital Underground. And anytime George Clinton was in town, he always wanted to make sure that he was working with Matt. You know what I mean? But a lot of times Matt would be working with us, and he would kind of just come into town and be like, call him on the day. Matt, this is talking about George Clinton, would come into town, call Matt Kelly like the day of the show or that night, like, yo, I want to come over and record some stuff. And he's like, oh, I'm in the studio working with like these guys or whatever. So we had met George Clinton, I feel like, too, just popping his head into the studio, because he ultimately what he would do is he would rent a few rooms in High Street Studios, and he had all these different musicians and interesting people that he was with all the time, and everybody would be doing something, and he would just pop back and forth into every different session and try to like catch a vibe and whatever. You know, one of those times I remember Matt Kelly saying, you know, you might want to try to dangle him into one of these sessions type of thing. You know what I mean? Because it's like he just be popping around. Like he's not popping his head in here just to kind of just be nosy. Like he's like sniffing around like, damn, what you guys got going on here? What's cooking? You know what I mean? Like this could be dope. So I almost didn't really, because Dale had worked with George Clinton, but he was such a legend, you know what I mean, to me, that and if there's anything that you know about High Roll Souls of Mischief, me in particular, is like we just super humble. Like no one is thinking like, oh yeah, we're a big deal. He needs to get in here and da da da. Like we're like, oh my God, George Clinton, what? He would want to work with us? That doesn't make any sense, kind of. But on one of these particular nights when him popping his head in or whatever, he kind of came in and was like, oh, I like this. Like, what is that? And Matt Kelly helped to kind of massage the situation to make him feel comfortable, make us feel comfortable, to get him into the booth. And you know what I'm saying? Everything got to be done super quick because you can't lose the vibes. So he's like, let's get the mic turned on. Let's just get everything going. And he's working at, you know, breakneck Superman speed. And got George Clinton he's in the vocal booth now. And it's a song that I produced. So I'm just kind of tripping like, damn, this is wild. You know what I mean? And then we had he had some other musicians with him. Man, it's been so long.
Those keys were ridiculous. That was one of my favorite songs on that album. I was like, the keys. Yeah. And then he was just like,
they had a bass player, and it was like a few different things. Maybe it was a different guitar player. Because we have some guy that started playing the guitar at first. And then one of George Clinton's like bandmates started playing. Like, man, give me that. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like some dude that was like, oh, I think I could vibe it out. And you know what I'm saying? And there's all these like accomplished musicians in there. And I feel like when a dude's just like, dude, you suck. Like, give me the guitar. Let me do it type of thing. But what I did really walk away from that, because it was such a joy to be around him, because there's certain people that I mean, I could give a list, you know, that's, you know, 2,000 hours long. But George Clinton and James Brown are such these fundamental cornerstone type genesis blocks, you know what I'm saying, for what hip hop became. And like, I never been in James Brown's presence, or got a chance to watch him work in the studio. But to see George Clinton, just to see like how amazing his mind is, like how he thinks and how he is just such this creative person. And his energy is just so amazing. You know what I mean? So I just sat in the studio I didn't want to miss one breath, you know, and we just sat in there and just watched him just go through his process. And it was really special to me, you know what I mean? Because he is a genius. So to watch someone like that's a master, and how he was able to, the steps that he went through to get, you know, because you could hear him kind of tinkering around with different ideas and then be like, oh, I like that, you know, and formulating his thoughts. It was like pretty special. And I walked away with so much, of that experience that kind of I took with me and used it for like my entire life, my whole music career. And I feel like that happened in like 99, 2000, something like that. So that was like a life-changing experience for me. So shout out Matt Kelly for hooking that up.
No, I bought that CD like 3 times. You know what I'm saying? Thank God. Thank God for some other ways I've been able to go back and listen to it without having to buy it a fourth time. Not that I wouldn't support my brothers and all that, but I found ways that when I want to hear those tunes, I know where to go and I know where to look. I don't download them, but I know where to listen. You know what I'm saying? So the next one I'm gonna ask you about, this is so I really like that song with George Clinton, but one of the prolific high roll staples. Now, I wasn't like a hip hop head that was just like hella on high roll younger. It's like you guys became my friends. And then as my friends, I was introduced to the, being at so many shows and then seeing you guys do what you do. And then me kind of instead of making a connection from the music, it was more like, okay, these are some friends. And then I'm watching what they do. And then I'm like, oh, I know some dudes that are kind of dope. And then me going back and then listening. But one of the songs that Hyro did, one of my favorite songs. This is one of my motivational songs. Full Circle.
Yeah.
Who produced that?
That's A+. And I feel when he brought that track to us and it was like one of the ones that he was like, yo, I'm feeling this song. He might even have had the name and everything. You know what I mean? But and he also had the concept of bringing Guapale along to be on that song too. So but that's one of them joints though.
No, I asked you that question before, and I remember you telling me like, yeah, man, A+ be coming with the beat, man. You know what I'm saying? A+ be coming with the beat. And I was like, because I'd asked you after I'd heard the song, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, damn. I was like, that song is just so hard. And then Guapale singing, that's like the way how she fits into that song. If anybody watching has not heard Full Circle and you want an appreciation for hieroglyphics, listen to Full Circle, then spin the record back and go and do your thing. But I felt like Full Circle was like I don't want to. It was a big song. I'll leave it there. Yeah, it was a big song that I felt it didn't get, it didn't get the
it was the title track to our second album. You know what I mean? So it just goes to show like the significance of that, of how we thought of the song. But when you have, it's like a lot of different people. I don't even, everybody's not on every song, and there's a, I don't even know if you would want to call it a democratic thing, because it's not really like, oh, majority or people are voting or whatever, but it's a lot of different creative minds. Creative minds are finicky, you know what I mean? They easily swayed in one direction. It's just like, it's hard to pin somebody down and be, so it's like 1 minute somebody loves a song and the next minute they're like, oh, I hate that song. And then it's like, actually, I think I love that song. Actually, that's like the best song I ever heard in my life. I'm like, 5 seconds ago, we hated the song. So that song was never anything of anybody like hating the song or nothing like that. But it would, because it was the title track and it was almost like an obvious choice for a single or whatever. I can't really remember exactly, what transpired, but that was definitely one of those songs that was like, this is clearly going to be one of our singles or something like that.
Big song.
And it just ended up kind of not being that, but it was not, I can't think of any like reasoning necessarily behind why it didn't become that, but it, like I said, that was the title track of that album. So, insignificant songs don't get to get the album title. You know what I mean?
Nah, that's right. I say us touring together, CaliCon, about 25 dates minimal in like 35 days across the United States. Brown came up with the concept for the tour. He brought me in to kind of facilitate it. The first time I ever tour managed. I wasn't the tour manager for the tour, but I probably had a lot of the information. So it was my first time dealing with like multiple groups at one time, kind of like baptism by fire.
Man, you ain't lying.
Yeah, baptism. Yeah, that was an experience. It was some wild boys on that tour, man.
Oh man,
It was
crazy.
It was some wild boys, but we had a conversation. It was probably in the middle of the tour, and you said something to me that Brown will always make the comment. He'll say, you know, because I'm hard. Like I'm just hard on people, hard on myself, just hard, whatever. And Brown would make the comment. He's like, dude, you're jaded. You've experienced a lot of things that other people haven't experienced. You've seen things. And so because I had very short patience for the way that some people would act on tour, and Brown be like, dude, you just been on tours, you've been around stuff, you've seen things. You're trying to judge somebody that, man, this is their first go, and they're on, you know what I'm saying? They're going from city to city to city to city. And so it kind of made me, you know, it kind of made me understand like, okay, my first time going out on the road was kind of like Europe for 6 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And then I had really no responsibility other than merch. I wasn't managing the group. I wasn't tour managing the group. I was just, you know, out, you know, slanging a bit of merch with no responsibility. And, you know, I kind of let my hair hang out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You know, one time. Yeah, one time I let the hair hang out a little bit. And so that kind of seasoned me to where once I did kind of start road managing and then taking more of a responsible, you know, position in the situation, it kind of, when I would look at other people, I just couldn't see, okay, this is a young guy, man. He's never been on stages like this. He's never been on stages night after night after night after night. And then he might think that the Pharcyde, or he might think Souls of Mischief are like some of his idols or just whatever. And for him to be on stage or to be traveling and just whatever, it's a big deal. So I learned a lot. But one thing that you said, it was about halfway through the tour, and I said all that about me being kind of jaded. You said something that kind of pulled me into just a way of thinking. You said, man, a lot of dudes couldn't stomach what we doing right now. You know what I'm saying? You was like, man, they not cut, you know, they not cut. And I thought about it and I was like, man, being away from home for a month, you're on buses, you're staying in hotels, you know, by the time we eat, it would be like 2, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, you got to be back on the bus at 8, 9, or 10, and just like night after night after night. And I remember what made you say that was it was some dudes that was kind of, I'm not gonna say they was straight on some diva stuff, but they were kind of, they weren't even Pharcyde or Souls of Mischief level, but they weren't showing up to sound check. That was one of the things that wasn't going on. And you know, you said, man, dudes ain't really cut for this. Like they wouldn't do this. And I just realized that, you know, with who I was rolling with, sound checks were very important. You know what I'm saying? Other cats, they would go to the, you know, first thing they want to do when they hit the town, they want to go to the mall, get the jersey of whatever, you know, the thing is, whatever, skip sound check. But when the sound is horrible, they on stage, you know, want to get mad at the sound man and all this kind of stuff. And like, man, I just had no patience for that. But looking back in retrospect, I'm like, man, these is young men, you know what I'm saying? And they you know, they're you know, they're getting their wings. So that was that experience. Out of your 2 albums, Triangulation and Vulture's Wisdom, which process do you feel pushed you more creatively?
I was probably my first solo record, which is Triangulation Station. Mm-hmm. And I had never, I always been in the group, and I really didn't have a desire to do anything solo. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, oh man, I'm in this group and I just can't wait to just like do my own thing. But I think Tajay jumped out and did something on his own. And we were like, oh, that's tight. We should all do these things. You know what I'm saying? Like we did an album in the past where everybody did, it was a Souls of Mischief album, but it was almost like all solo songs. You know what I'm saying? So it was like every single person had 2 or 3 of their own joints, and then we mixed it all together and put out a record called Focus. And then I think after that experience, it was like, we got our feet wet doing some little solo things. And it was just like, it's always good to kind of push yourself creatively, to like challenge yourself, you know what I mean? Do things that maybe you think that you can't do, or things that are difficult, or put yourself in kind of some uncomfortable situations. And, for me, when I did that album, it was like, I didn't really set out to be like, oh, I'm going to produce this whole album or whatever. I didn't have I was just in work mode. I was in the studio. I was working with Matt Kelly. We had a room at High Tree Studios in San Francisco. So it was like a place that I had been going to for years and years, at least 10 or 12 years prior to me recording my own record. So it was a safe space that I could be really experimental and not have to, whatever, there's certain things that either I could use or I couldn't use. And it was a lot of improvisation happening on that record. So
real quick, I got something I want to share with you about High Street Studios. Scared the hell out of me, man. Figuratively, literally, geographically. That was real, man. That area was real, man.
Oh, hell yeah. That area was crazy, man.
Yeah, that area was very real. Matter of fact, you know what? Another one of my memories, we were in the studio, High Street Studios, and I want to say Brown was up there doing Humble Beginnings. And something had happened, and he didn't have a tape or a DAT, or he didn't have something. And I remember I rented a van because they were only $39 a day. And I got one of my homegirls to roll with me. And it was literally because he needed it that day. And it was literally like, I might have found out at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I rented the van. I was on the road and I went up there. So I kicked it for like about an hour and a half before I came back to LA. And you had a homeboy, Mike something, and he's a comedian now in a bar.
Oh yeah,
and Mike G, and he had just seen The Matrix, dude. He just seen The Matrix. That fool was going on. He said, "Man, it was doper than Dr. Zhivago, man." He was going on, and I was like, man, he was kicking around some very everybody's at a level of. But the funny part about it was, I didn't know him as a comedian then. He probably didn't do comedy, but there was some genius to him, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, at least that's not something that we had discussed that I can remember of him. You know what I'm saying? Becoming like a stand-up comedian. Mm-hmm. Over the years, I've known a few people that have found their way into stand-up comedy, and I don't think I ever knew anybody that was like, oh man, I want to be a stand-up comedian. It was almost like, because that has got to be one of the most diverse group of people that I've ever met, and they somehow have like a common ground. These people could be, I mean, so different from one another, ideologically, everything, but somehow still share this understanding about, comedy and comedic timing, and it's a pretty deep thing. And hip hop is one of those genres that where it's created by poor people, you know what I'm saying, that didn't have a lot. So there's a lot of, trying to piece together all these different things to create your own sound. You know what I mean? Like you're repurposing a turntable that's supposed to be used in this way, and you're using it for your own way. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the way that these samplers were used, people just like, they're like, you're not supposed to sample it like that. You're supposed, and people are just like, I'll just repurpose it for my own self. You know what I'm saying? So like with comedy, it's like hip hop takes a lot from comedy. We use comedy in the rap lyrics. A lot of battle rap is funny. You know what I'm saying? People are kicking jokes and whatever. And so there is like a little bit of some type of common ground and kinship there. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think that because I'm a rapper, I'd be like this amazing, comedian. Sorry, T.I. or whoever, you know what I'm saying? But like it's just I think that there's something that, especially when it comes to rappers, it's like we always have had like this great appreciation for like stand-up comedians, you know what I mean? It's like they occupy a special place in the heart of a lot of hip-hop dudes, at least from my generation. There was a lot of, we all love Richard Pryor and Dolomite and Eddie Murphy and, Red Fox and, the list goes on and on. You know what I mean? George Carlin, all that. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like my boy, Mike G he was one of those dudes that's just super, super observant. You know what I mean? And hella just, he has his understanding, his perception of things and how he kind of like tells you these stories or whatever, just always cracked me up all the time. I mean, that all we ever did was just sit around and laugh, you know what I'm saying, half the time. But, in my mind, we just like talking shit or whatever. But he did always have me in stitches, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, when he did kind of make that jump towards stand-up comedy, I was like, I can actually see that working for you because you always just been naturally funny, you know what I'm saying? And he kind of like, he's one of those people that just come in the room and, you know what I mean? He's not even trying to, but all of a sudden, all the attention is just on him. You know what I mean? Just because of what he's talking about and saying.
He went off. I witnessed it. I was like, who is this?
We went to high school, you know what I mean? Like we shout him out on 93 Till Infinity. It's like, Mike G, he's chilling. And then he was also like extra prolific, who was signed to Jive Records, who was part of Hieroglyphics. He was like in that group as well.
Okay.
So it was like Mike G and Snoop, extra prolific.
I never met Snoop, but I remember Brown telling me like he was one of the hardest. Like he was hard back.
We all went to high school together. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I'm about to ask you about the most well-known affiliate to Hieroglyphics that a lot of people don't know was on Hieroglyphics in some kind of a way or did something with Hieroglyphics. Mahershala Ali.
Oh shit, word, yeah.
So did you understand? Because with me, I can tell by like, even without seeing people do their craft, I can kind of just tell when people are like really smart or gifted. You know when someone's gifted, regardless if you're seeing them do what their craft is or not. They have the it. You know what I'm saying? Some people got it. Some people ain't. You know what I'm saying? Did you understand that Mahershala Ali was gonna make the impact that he made when you met him back when he was dealing with Hyro?
I mean, no.
Okay.
Like I definitely, you know, because he has reached some incredible heights. You know what I'm saying? One of the things that tripped me out the most was I was like, damn, he can actually really rap. You know what I mean? Like he had bars. So like I'm not saying that I was like overly like I'm hella skeptical, like, oh, this dude, he ain't gonna have nothing. But I was like, oh, kind of surprised a little bit when he started rapping, because I'm like, damn, he actually clearly this is something that he is passionate about. You know what I mean? It's not like he's just like, oh yeah, I got this little opportunity to do some rap shit, so I'm gonna just fuck with it. Like, and even aside from that, he was talented. But I did realize that this is somebody that is special in a way because he was so multi-talented. You know what I mean? Like he was this incredibly kind person. He was just so gracious and nice and like, you know, I don't really meet a lot of people like that. You know what I mean? That are genuinely just like, wow, this person is just like kind of like a very, I don't know another word to describe it other than kind. You know what I'm saying? Like he was thoughtful, he was considerate of other people. I mean, I know that it seemed that he was kind of like a spiritual guy, you know what I mean? Like his religion, meant definitely it wasn't just something that he just kind of like, oh yeah, just kind of by osmosis I happen to be this and whatever. But like he was one of the things that I did think about him is that he did kind of strike me as like, oh, this dude kind of like when I hung out with him and spent time around him, like I was like, wow, I don't know a lot of actors, but for whatever reason and however it is his personality, like he was just very composed and you know what I mean? It's like he just seemed like a type of person that there's not a lot of people that I had met like him prior to meeting him. You know what I mean? And he definitely kind of like left an impression on me, just his personality and the way he carried himself. But I would have just never imagined that he would be, winning multiple Oscars and, doing that whole thing. I had one other friend that we went to high school. He didn't go to high school with me, but he went to high school with Festo. But we would hang out all the time. And his name was Russell Hornsby. And he was like this larger than life personality, just another guy that was just very kind hearted and just good natured. Always like anytime I saw him, he had a smile on his face. He was able to always like lighten the mood, put a smile on my face. And he kind of was like the life of the party, but I didn't go to school with him, so I didn't understand, that this was even the path that he was going to be on. And then like later in life, I saw him doing a play in Los Angeles. And I was just like, wow, I was like blown away. Like, damn, dude, like, because I feel like he cried or he did something in it. You know what I mean? He was more like, we're just having fun, teenage kids, just, it's nothing but jokes the whole time. So like this was a more of a serious role, And so to see him like really do this play and show all this emotion and stuff, I was kind of like blown away by that. So that was like the one person that I had spent time around that I felt was like, this dude takes his craft and is like a serious actor. And he went on to be in all types of stuff. Like he was in Fences. He's done a lot of stuff. He actually plays the dad in BMF right now. Because
Oh
he had worked
wow.
with 50 Cent a few times. And he was like, I think he was in Get Rich or Die Trying, because I want to say they filmed that in Toronto. So we'll be doing shows in Toronto and then link up with Russell Hornsby. But yeah, that's another guy that I had, you know what I'm saying? And he went on to do great things in film. But I was making that analysis because I'm like, that's the other person I had met that was like, oh, this dude is hella serious about his craft, and he just has like this like glow about himself that I kind of was like, because I knew somebody that was taking acting really seriously.
Mm-hmm.
When I actually did meet Mahershala Ali, I saw a similar thing, not like they're like writing the same type of person, but it's, you know, two younger black men and kind of in the same age group. They both kind of grew up in the Bay Area, you know what I mean? So there was some similarities there. And, you know, it's a joy to see him go on to reach the success and the heights of success that he has. You know what I mean? Because I feel it's just well deserved. All of the things that I've ever seen him in, I've always felt like he was like really amazing. I mean, I watched Moonlight, and he didn't really have like this very long amount of time on the screen. He was only in the movie for like a short period of time. But it's almost like he had such a huge impact in that moment that he was in there. It almost didn't even seem like I had to be reminded that he wasn't even in the movie for that long. So to be in a movie and have a small part like that and then still walk away with an Oscar just goes, you know, to show like how talented the brother really is.
You know, I became cool with Shadow Flack. I was a fan of his Netflix Marvel stuff, and he ended up being in town, and I had a friend who knew him. I was like, yo, can you get him to come by the studio? Like, man, I want to get him. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and he was out here for some awards ceremony. I was like, dude, can you get him on the show? Like, man, I'm like, man. And my homeboy was, I tell you, Cognito. You might know Cognito.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So Cognito was like, oh man, Robbie. He's like, oh man, he's my homeboy. I got you, dude. He's cool. And I was like, So he came by and he was like, well, you know, I just been doing all this award stuff, kind of hungry and just And he's like, well, I can come by for about 30 minutes. I'm like, man, you know, the interview is like an hour. And then we ended up kicking it like 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? But not the interview, but like before the interview, after the interview. Been cool ever since. And the crazy thing about it is he's a very kind, caring, loving dude. He loves Black people a lot. Not that he doesn't love other people, but like he really like embraces our people. You know what I'm saying? That's something very, very big to him. But he's somebody that, as personable and as cool as he is, when he has roles, like he'll be like, yo, Smooch, I gotta hit this script, man. You know what I'm saying? Like whoop whoop, or you know, whoop whoop. And I'm like, damn, you have somebody who's this dope, but that's the reason why they're dope. Because they're, you know, they don't, you know, they're not going slow with their craft. Like they're really like, okay, this is, you know, this is what I'm on, so I gotta be my best at it. And I say all that to say, I think I kind of offended him one time because I was like, I was having a conversation with him and somebody, and they had kind of recognized him, and I said, yeah, you know, he's the dude from because I'll preface him as being what Samuel Jackson was to Spike Lee and all the Spike Lee movies. Shadow Flack is like that cat to Netflix. Like he's in Stranger Things, he's in Luke Cage, he's in Daredevil, he's in, you know, like all these things. And he's just that dude. And I was like, you know, his roles are, you know, are kind of small, but he kills it. And then in Shadow Flack, he corrected me. He's like, no, there isn't a small role. Some roles just have longer time than others. And I was like, but I got it though, because when he does his thing, you don't need that, you know what I'm saying? You don't need that much time. If you do your thing, you could have 10 seconds and you set the foundation for how people are gonna, you know what I'm saying, how they're gonna connect to the art. So with that being said, what would be a dream collaboration?
Oh man. You know, I always say this, and I hope that, you know, one day that this actually comes to fruition, but it's like, I feel like, you know, hieroglyphics occupies a certain space in hip hop, and we always kind of get this comparison between hieroglyphics and Wu-Tang Clan. And it's like clearly very different, you know what I mean? Like the success that they've achieved is, unparalleled. I just went to go watch them at the Hollywood Bowl with Nas and Busta Rhymes, and it was incredible. You know what I'm saying? So like I would like to see something that could bring those two crews together, because I feel like that would be special. You know what I'm saying? A Hyro, Wu-Tang, something. You know what I mean? Song, tour, you know what I mean? Any type of collaboration like that would be dope. You know what I mean? And it's like I know a lot of the brothers in the group, and they all, you know what I'm saying, solid people. So, you know what I mean? It's like I got a lot of love and respect for them as just as men, period. You know what I mean? And they always been rock solid. You know what I mean? And I am a fan first and foremost of hip hop music. And I've always just admired, what they have done. Like, they're so original. The way that they were able to create that whole universe, the different chambers and methods, and just it's kind of mind blowing. You know what I mean? And the way that I met them was real special too. But it's like I would love to see that happen one day. You know what I mean? Like some Hyro Wu-Tang, something going on. And we'll just kill the game with the merch too on top of that.
I won't say, but that show that we did at Shoreline Village with Pharcyde, Wu-Tang, De La Soul, Pharcyde, Wu-Tang, De La Soul, Rakim, Wu-Tang, they didn't even have their merch like very well organized with like sizes and all that kind of stuff. But I saw what they made checking out that night, and it was something that really made me gain a lot of respect for the brand, man. I was like, damn.
Man, that W is that thing's
it was ridiculous.
The golden ticket right there.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I'll say about that night at Shoreline Village, I'm always that dude that will approach somebody that I, may be a fan of in some kind of a way and just be like, yo, I hate to be that guy. That's how I always start off. I hate to be that guy, but let me get a flick. Or not even meet with them, but just I'll catch a flick of them. I usually have my camera or my phone. Well, I always have my camera, but it's kind of like sometimes, go in your backpack, pull the camera out. So now the phones are so good, I'll just take a flick. And I remember that night backstage, Pharcyde, Wu-Tang, Rakim, De La Soul, I could not bring myself to take a picture of Rakim. I felt that the moment was so, it was so like, it was just something different, man. And I forget, I want to say maybe I saw Dave go in and he was talking to Rakim. And I just remember just looking at it. And dude, I've seen a gang of groups, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I've been backstage with a gang of groups, been around a gang of groups, but that picture of like, picture in my mind, because I didn't take a picture, but of Dave dapping up Rakim and them having a conversation, that was like, it was so hip hop to me, I felt it'd be sacrilegious to take a picture.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I mean, when you got a little seasoning, you know what I mean, and you understand and you have that situational awareness, you know what I'm saying, because you can ruin moments that, like you said, this is a moment that you were able to witness and walk away, and it was a special thing that you was able to witness, you know what I'm saying. And then sometimes pulling out a camera, trying to take a picture of that type of stuff, it like, it could just ruin the vibe and just turn everything down, and it's, I mean, obviously in the era that we're in, it's like that's looked at as like a missed opportunity somehow for you. You know what I mean? Like you could have had a picture and put it up and did this, that, and the third, but it's like, the moment that you were there and able to experience that is more precious than just, you know, catching those flicks. Now, I'm not saying never ever take a picture or whatever, but I agree. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been in a lot of situations like that where I'm just like, I'm more about the moment and the things that are going on anyway. You know what I mean? It's like, as I got older, I did start to realize like the importance of documentation and keeping things, you know, keeping a record of, you know, what's going on. And that is definitely important to document these things. But every single moment, every one of these things, some things are just meant to be experienced and not necessarily meant to be broadcast or, you know, put on social media or whatever. And especially now, because it's like anytime somebody take a picture, you know, it's going straight on the internet anyway. It's not like this just gonna go to the house and, you know, sit on the wall or something. So, you know, I think there's something to be said for being fully immersed in the moment and not necessarily trying to whip out a camera and take a picture, or, you know what I mean, get an autograph or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's like better to just sit there and be a part of, you know, these little special moments like that. And at the same time, it's like other people are involved too, and it can ruin a moment for everybody. You know what I mean? So you do have to be aware of that. You know what I mean? But it's like, I know you don't move that way, but everybody ain't that sharp. You know what I'm saying?
I lost it.
Like some people that are come out there and just be like, yo, let me take a picture of, let me get in the middle between Rakim and Dave.
Nah, I lost it at it wasn't at the Forum. It was at the YouTube Center. Dale and Beck was chopping it up. And I was like, oh man. And nah, man, they was on the same frequency and I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? And I just it didn't get awkward, it didn't get funny. Me, Brown looked at me and I was like, yeah, I know, man. I was like, I had to be that guy. I had to be that guy. I was like, man, this was Dale and Beck, man. They was chopping it up backstage in the green room. I was like,
I had a similar experience when I walked in there because I'm like a huge Tame Impala fan. Like, I wanted to go to Coachella to go watch him perform and all that. My younger brother put me up on his music years ago, and I was just like, what the hell is this? Like, this is the most incredible shit that I've ever heard. Like, I immediately turned into like a huge fan. Mm-hmm. But my younger brother is also like a big Tame Impala fan. Then his wife's close friend, he's younger, but he has vinyl, and you know what I'm saying? Like, he's a real music aficionado, and he's super into Tame Impala. So like, as soon as we walked in the backstage, we both looked to the side, was like, oh, Tame Impala, he's right there. But yeah, that was a pretty incredible bunch right there. Because they had this little side area where you could watch the show. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, come on, man, I don't want to just hang in the backstage the whole time. Like, I actually want to go out and watch the thing that's going on out there. So I went out there. You know, I watched Beck do his thing. I watched Tame Impala and Brown do their thing. Earth Gang, like it was dope. And then Beck came and got kind of in the crowd with everybody and watched the show with us. You know what I mean? So that it was a dope vibe for sure.
So I'm gonna hit you with the last one, man. Where do you see social interaction going in the next 2 years?
I mean, what I would like to see and what I see happening are two different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would like to see people get kind of out of their virtual experience, you know what I mean, and have like real world experiences. You know what I mean? Rather than doing a FaceTime, you know, just do it face to face, that type of scenario. Because there's there's something special about, you know, communing with people that you care about, like in person. It's a totally different experience than it is if it's done, you know, through technology, which, you know, I'm all for, you know, being able to use technology. You know what I mean? During the pandemic, I was FaceTiming the heck out of all my family members, parents, all that, you know what I'm saying? And like without that, it would have been a lot harder. So for us to be able to use, you know, video calling and all that stuff, it was great, but it's a lot better to see them in person, obviously. But you know, that's where I would like to see more in-person interaction. You know what I mean? Like if there's people have differences or whatever, they should sit down and talk about it. And it doesn't have to be in front of a big giant audience and whatever. You know what I mean? And everything doesn't have to be for
the click.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't have to be performative and monetized. It could be for to create a better understanding. You know what I mean? But I mean, I see a lot of, I don't know, it's just like, you know, it's like you turn on your computer or your cell phone or whatever, and it's like, it's just so many different things that you look on there are supposed to kind of trigger you in different ways to make you angry or, you know, to create some type of phobia in you, or it's a constant othering, you know, somehow this person is yeah. Well, you know, it's like if someone isn't exactly like you and doesn't think exactly and say all of the exact right things and whatever as it's that you think, then you guys are just like mortal enemies or whatever. I mean, I don't think it's that far there, but it's seen at a rapid pace. It's getting there closer and closer. So it's just like it seems to me that people in this country have a lot more in common than they do have differences. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's not like it's a big kumbaya, but we are really not that different from one another. And
I'm gonna tell you, how I've matured. You know what I'm saying? The old me on Facebook, you know, that's more like your old school partners and all that kind of stuff, whatever, you know, people you may have gone to junior highs. For me, people on Facebook are like, I went to elementary, junior high school, whatever. And then, but we were all on kind of like a similar wavelength. But then, you know, 30 years later, 20 years later, people, you know, going their own directions, coming to their own. And when I would have people that would be like, yeah, Trump, you know what I'm saying? Whoop de whoop. I'd be like, whoop, delete, click, you know what I'm saying? Or when I had homeboys that were police officers, like I'll say, I probably know about 8 police officers, and I know 3 of them that I'm really glad that they're police officers. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, we need guys like you because you'll give the levity to situations that people need that make me feel safe. You know what I'm saying? But like I was 2 days ago, I saw one of my high school homeboys. He lives in like Oklahoma. So he lives in the middle of nowhere, like woods, small town, whatever. And he does stuff to get people's goat. He got my goat, man, because he put that Kanye. He was going about the Kanye, and he's like, we need more people like Kanye, and you know, he's, you know, blah blah blah. And then, you know, people are commenting like, yeah, they go, you know, Kanye's a free thinker. We need to be, you know, and blah blah blah. And man, my finger almost started trembling. I was like, man, we gonna delete this. I don't need to see what's going on in this dude's life. And then I was like, you know what, man? Everybody can feel how they feel, man. As long as people ain't putting hands on people or whatever, man, you can't micromanage everybody's emotion and thought and, you know, this, that, and the other. And that's why I say I'm matured, because the old me would have been like, oh, man. But because, and real quick, I know we going over a little bit, but the thing that got my goat about the Kanye thing was when Kanye was on Drink Champs, he was loose. He was like, you know what I'm saying? He was like very disrespectful. And a couple things that he said that I took disrespectful towards other people.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like when he was talking to Tucker Carlson, he was like a little school girl with a wet lap. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, and he was giggling and he was like, he. And he was like excited and nervous and all this. And I'm like, okay, he go on Drink Champs, you know what I'm saying, and act a fool. And he get in front of this dude. And that fool is like sitting up, you know what I'm saying? Sitting up like a little puppy waiting for a treat. And I was like, oh man, this guy. But anyway, that's my rant. You know what I'm saying?
Nah. I mean, I think that what I would like to see is, I feel like I'm not afraid of any ideas that exist in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, ideas don't frighten me. And even if they're things that I vehemently disagree with, I think that I can logically, you know what I'm saying, have discussions and talk about, you know, complex concepts or whatever. And it's not something that happens in the course of a 30-minute soundbite or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, if wrestling with difficult concepts, you know, it takes time and it takes effort on both people that share differing views should not be afraid of other people's views as well. You know what I'm saying? And I think if people were to sit down and talk about those, some of the pushback that people get is some of the most enlightening moments. You know what I'm saying? Because I always remember when Kanye was on TMZ and he was talking about how slavery was a choice, you know what I'm saying? Which is obviously something that people are going to be like, hold on a second, bro. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? And I understand that he has a bigger, greater, larger concept. But at that moment, what he got some pushback from Van Lathan, who kind of expressed himself in a very, I felt it was very, very eloquent the way that he expressed his dislike for what Kanye was saying. And it wasn't done in some demeaning. He didn't have
prehistoric,
to say
roguish.
He didn't have to be insulting. Like, he didn't have to be like, oh, you're a bitch or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't have to reduce, you know, his frustration to just like a childlike insult. It was a very, he handled himself with dignity and as a man. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like more of those conversations need to be happening. You know what I'm saying? To where there needs to be pushback about having, you know, whatever these strange ideologies that all of us share. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure there are things that I am passionate about and think, oh, this is 100% true or whatever. And if somebody was to kind of walk me through why it's not true or whatever, maybe my eyes might be open to that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it seems to me like right now everybody is like, there's an idea that you don't like, you're supposed to just be so afraid of it that it just can't be let out the box or something, because heaven forbid somebody says, you know, something, because it's going to just, the world is going to end. It's like, you know, I don't really necessarily believe that that's the case. I'm not just like a hopeless romantic where it's just like, oh yeah, love conquers all. I mean, at the same time that I do think that, but it's unhealthy to just bury your head in the sand and just be like, these ideas that I disagree with, they don't even exist or they're unimportant. You know what I'm saying? Because they're clearly super important to a lot of people. You know what I mean? And without that ongoing dialogue that needs to be happening and consistently happening, if you don't have that dialogue, then you just are in these echo chambers. And then that's where kind of extremism flourishes. And that's like a dangerous place to be. You know what I mean? You don't want to have people just only talking about, I hate this over here. Those people are like this. They suck. You don't have. They're not getting any pushback. It's just like, yeah. Everybody's just agreeing with each other. I mean, that's unnatural. You know what I mean? Like, people need to be able to discuss difficult topics and, you know, just hear differing opinions. It's not like you have to totally shift. Once you don't walk away from those conversations and just be like, oh, I shifted my whole entire perspective 100% in this way. But there's definitely things that you can learn, because it's like now, you know, it just feels like if somehow we don't agree with each other, then you're almost like your humanity is almost in question. It's like, oh, you believe, like, oh, you're a Trump supporter, oh, or you like Joe Biden or whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? No, both of those people are supposed to hate each other. It's like, but you guys both experience poverty. You both experience, you know, the things that you guys have in common in this country or whatever are probably so many different things that you could find some common ground on. Mm-hmm. That the places where you don't have the common ground would be more of an opportunity, I feel like, for at least an understanding of where somebody is coming from. Like, why do you feel this way? Not necessarily like, what do you think? It's like, well, why? You know what I'm saying? Why do you support these type of people? Why do you think about this? And I feel like from those conversations, a lot more understanding happens rather than just pointing to some, you know, angering, infuriating soundbite, you know what I mean, that you didn't hear in context or have no real, you can't really put it in its proper space. You just hear this one salacious thing that's been curated to make you upset, and now you so frustrated you don't even want to hear what anybody else has to say. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just not afraid of ideas, no matter what they are. Even if it's like some hateful, you know, messed up ideology. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Black man living in America, so I'm, you know, anti-Black racism is something that I experience all the time, and I'm still not like, I can't stand it here. What am I ever gonna do? It's like, it exists. I see it. You know, I know that it's there. It's not something that I am afraid to discuss, you know what I'm saying? Or have other people, you know, hold on to these kind of outdated racist ideologies that are, you know, made fully from myth and historical inaccuracies and whatever path led them to these wrong thoughts or whatever. It doesn't frighten me. It's not that I wish that was just wiped off the face of the earth. You know what I'm saying? I really wish that people would be willing to step and come to the table and talk about stuff, especially young people. You know what I'm saying? People that's older and more stubborn and stuck in their ways or whatever, that maybe you can't change their mind. But as young people experience life more and go through things, and they might hear something at a young age and it don't resonate at all. Then a couple years later, they like, oh shit, that should make hella sense now. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I don't think we should foster that vibe of just like, we're afraid of ideas. You know, I ain't with that.
It's so funny because I felt like I covered so many questions, and one of the questions that I omitted, but you answered it, like you went further than anybody who we've ever asked. A question of cancel culture, and you basically summed it all up. And no, I appreciate it, man. I'm not on that Zen level of existence similar to you, and I don't say that facetiously, not completely facetiously, but no, I get, well, you know, like I said, I have matured. I didn't delete, you know, I didn't vaporize homeboy's friendship, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, based off of the dialogue that was going on, I feel like, you know, I had a bit of tolerance, and I'll have a better understanding, you know what I'm saying? So that being said, man, you have any projects right now that you want to let people know about? Anything you want to shout out?
Oh man, well, we got our Souls of Mischief 30th anniversary coming up next year. You know what I'm saying? So we planning on doing a pretty sizable tour next year. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun. Hopefully go to some places that I've never been. And got a couple shows coming up. I'm in Denver on Saturday, and then we got something in Oakland on the 29th in Oakland. Hieroglyphics in Oakland on the 29th, and Opio doing a solo thing in Denver on the 15th. So that's the upcoming joints, and I'm always working. You know what I mean? Me and Architect, dude that produced Vulture's Wisdom, we dusted off my old SP 1200 that was getting neglected and sitting in the corner just collecting dust, and met up with Bruce Forat, who's like this legendary drum machine maker. Just like this dude's, he needs a documentary on his life. He's incredible. But he is, anybody that's ever had a drum machine in Los Angeles has probably come across all the major guys.
Yeah,
probably,
he would customize the MPCs and whatnot.
He does Dr. all that. Dre. Dude worked with like Michael Jackson, everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just crazy. So he fixed my SP 1200. Then we took it to Stone's Throw Records and, you know, worked on a little project in there. And then it was just so much fun working with this SP 1200 because I haven't used it in forever. You know what I mean? It's just like this kind of, it has a beautiful sound. I love the SP 1200, but it's not the ease of use as, you know, when you're just using some of these new programs, where it was a lot easier. But it was so much fun just breaking that thing out and sampling and using it and whatever. So I've been just going crazy with the SP. When I went up to High Road Day, I took it up to Russian River. I got a close friend of mine that's an artist. He has an art studio that's in Monterey. It's like a little small town up near Russian River. And like busted out the SP 1200 in the art studio because he has a record player. And it's just been fun using the SP 1200. So there's gonna be some SP 1200 Opio things floating around here shortly. You know what I mean?
Nah, that's tight. Well, nah, man, dude, I appreciate you for always keeping it a thou wow. Appreciate the interview. And nah, man, stay safe. And I will listen to a couple things that you said about the tolerance and understanding and conversation and discussion and all that. But no, man, peace, Opio. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Much love, bro.